Nessa lição, você aprenderá 50 dos verbos frasais mais comuns. Preparei 5 histórias curtas para que você veja como esses verbos frasais são usados no contexto. Desta forma, você poderá aprender a usá-los em situações da vida real. Eu vou fornecer seus significados, transcrições e frases de exemplo também. Também incluí vocabulário adicional para garantir que você entenda cada história. Não se esqueça de fazer o teste no final para ver quanto você aprendeu.
Emily's first job. Way back in my uni days, my best friend Emily started her first job as a waiter in a bustling cafe. Nervous but determined, she decided to look up some tips while sitting on the bus to work. Just as she was starting to relax, the bus suddenly broke down. She quickly got off the bus and shot off on foot. Her new colleague Sarah helped her calm down and get on with her duties. Emily came across challenging customer after challenging customer, but she managed to keep her cool. Sarah's guidance was invaluable as she continued to look after Emily throughout her shift. During the busy lunch rush, Emily knocked over a tray of glasses onto her phone. Her phone went black and wouldn't turn on. As the day came to an end, Emily felt a sense of relief. What a day! To look up. To look up. She looked up the recipe online before attempting to bake the cake. To break down. To break down. Unfortunately, my car broke down on my way out of town. To get off. To get off. We need to get off at the next station. To shoot off. To shoot off. As soon as the bell rang, the children shot off towards the playground. To calm down. To calm down. I always try to take a deep breath to calm down before giving a presentation. To get on with. To get on with. Right, that's enough TV. Time to get on with your homework. To come across. To come across. You won't believe who I came across at the bookshop today. To look after. To look after. Jane will look after the children while we're at dinner. To knock over. To knock over. The strong wind knocked over many of the newly planted trees in the park. To turn on. To turn on. Can you turn on the heater? It's freezing in here. Arthur's Tea Shop. Now I want to tell you about the time my cousin, Arthur, decided to set up a charming little tea shop in our hometown. He was known for whipping up tasty scones and aromatic brews. However, when he applied for a loan, the bank manager turned him down, believing his venture wouldn't work out. Despite this minor setback, Arthur refused to give up on his dream. Focused on proving them wrong, he took on the challenge of transforming our grandmother's dilapidated cottage into a delightful tea room. He dusted off some old family recipes, figured out the perfect blend of teas, and even caught up on the latest baking trends. As the grand opening day approached, villagers started to queue outside his tea room, eager to taste his treats. Arthur had truly turned the tables on his doubters. His tea room became a thriving success, and even the bank manager had to eat humble pie when he came to enjoy a cuppa. Arthur never missed the chance to offer his doubters a treat when they came by, as opposed to telling them off. He made sure not to faff about when it came to achieving his dreams. To set up. To set up. Sarah decided to set up a charity to help underprivileged children in her community. To whip up. To whip up. My mom used to whip up the most delicious pasta in just a few minutes. To turn down. To turn down. Unfortunately, we've had to turn down several incredible job applicants due to budget constraints. To work out. To work out. I haven't found a publisher for my book yet, but I'm sure it'll all work out. To give up. To give up. After hours of trying to solve the puzzle, she finally gave up. To take on. To take on. Mark was eager to prove himself to the higher-ups and quickly agreed to take on the team leader role. To dust off. To dust off. Allie decided it was time to dust off the guitar he bought as a teenager and learn to play once and for all. To figure out. To figure out. He read the instructions several times but still couldn't figure out how to assemble the bookshelf. To catch up. To catch up. After missing a few classes, Lisa needed to catch up on her coursework. To tell off. To tell off. We sat in silence as Ms. Langford told Rachel off for being 10 minutes late to class. To faff about. To faff about. Instead of studying for his exams, Tom would often faff about on social media. My childhood dream. Have I ever told you about how I dreamt of becoming a professional violinist when I was younger? When I brought up my interest in the violin to my parents, they got me a beginner violin to practice with. But I always struggled to nail the right fingerings and bow technique, and one day I met an older woman named Isabella, who was a fantastic violinist. Her passion for music rubbed off on me instantly. Luckily, she took me under her wing and taught me a lot. As the years went by, I began to lose interest in the violin, and I cut back on how much I was playing. It felt like I was letting Isabella down and my own dreams. I contemplated giving it up altogether. It was a difficult decision to make, but I decided to call off my pursuit of becoming a professional musician. I sorted out my priorities and decided the best decision was to give up so I could pursue whatever truly made me happy. I found a new path in life, and I looked forward to all that life had in store for me. In the end, the lessons I learned from Isabella about passion, determination, and following one's heart paid off in ways I couldn't have imagined. Life can be funny, but it always turns out exactly as it's supposed to. To bring up. To bring up. Sarah decided not to bring up the fact that she was moving out of the country during the family dinner. To rub off. To rub off. Her enthusiasm for volunteering began to rub off on her friends, inspiring them to join too. To go by. To go by. The years seemed to go by quickly as she watched her children grow up. To cut back. To cut back. I need to cut back on the amount of money I spend on takeaways. To let down. To let down. Marion says she will be here tomorrow. She won't let me down, will she? To call off. To call off. Due to bad weather, they had to call off the outdoor picnic and reschedule it. To sort out. To sort out. I've got to sort out the plumbing issue in the kitchen. It's becoming quite a nuisance. To look forward to. To look forward to. The whole family looks forward to the annual reunion. It's the highlight of the year. To pay off. To pay off. Putting effort into your studies now will pay off in the long run. To turn out. To turn out. Despite initial doubts, the project turned out to be a great success. A love gone wrong. Now let me tell you the juicy story of Tom and Elizabeth. They were inseparable throughout sixth form and were the envy of all their peers. But in our final year, something changed dramatically. Their relationship, once unbreakable, suddenly fell apart in the most public way possible, right in the common room. It was quite ugly, with harsh words exchanged and tears shed. Despite their friends' encouragement to make up, they couldn't come up with a way to reconcile. It seemed like their love had withered, replaced by bitterness and resentment. Tom, always the stubborn one, insisted on maintaining his distance. On the other hand, Elizabeth desperately wanted to take back what she'd said and rekindle what they once had. Weeks turned into months, and the tension between them refused to budge. They would merely brush one another off when they were in the same room. To fall apart. To fall apart. As the years passed, the once grand mansion began to fall apart, its walls crumbling. To make up. To make up. They knew they had to make up and mend the rift in their friendship after their heated debate. To come up with. To come up with. In her quest for adventure, she often came up with creative ways to appreciate the small things in her life. To insist on. To insist on. Abraham's dedication to his art was evident. He insisted on perfection, even if it meant countless revisions. To take back. To take back. She wanted to take back her hurtful words, but knew the damage was already done. To turn into. To turn into. Their casual flirtation turned into a deep, meaningful connection that neither could ignore. To brush off. To brush off. He refused to brush off criticism and instead used it as motivation. To cheer up. To cheer up. Music has a magical way of cheering up the soul, even in the most difficult times. To grow on. To grow on. At first, our new colleague seemed reserved, but over time he began to grow on everyone. To move on. To move on. After a period of unemployment, she managed to move on by starting her own business. A grand adventure. One sunny afternoon, while I was busy working on a project at home, I accidentally left the garden gate slightly ajar. Diego, my mischievous dog, and Alfonso, my curious cat, seized the opportunity to set out on a grand adventure together. I only found out about their escape when I heard a commotion outside and saw the gate wide open. Panic filled my heart as I rushed out calling their names. As I searched the village, I ran into my neighbor, Ms. Jenkins, who told me that she had seen the unlikely duo gallivanting around the park. I wondered to myself what they could possibly be getting up to. I hurried to the park, and there they were, Diego and Alfonso chasing butterflies. I could see that they were warming to the excitement of their little adventure. Before I could reach them, they decided to make a dash through the bushes. My attempt to cut them off was useless. I ended up letting them have their day. I tagged along behind them wherever they went, just observing. To set out. To set out. The explorers set out to try to reach the South Pole. To find out. To find out. I found out too late that my favorite singer was coming to town. To run into. To run into. While shopping, I ran into a childhood friend I hadn't seen in years. To get up to. To get up to. He used to get up to all kinds of mischief when he was younger. To warm to. To warm to. My dad finally warmed to the idea of moving in with us. To cut off. To cut off. My husband cannot walk in a straight line and always cuts me off whenever we walk down the street together. To tag along. To tag along. I used to always tag along with my older sister and her friends when they went out for the day. To turn up. To turn up. Just when we thought he wouldn't make it, he turned up at the party with a surprise gift. To fill somebody in. To fill somebody in. Could you please fill me in on the details of the project? I've been out of the loop.
E aí, quantos desses phrasal verbs você conhecia? Comenta aí! Não se esqueça de fazer o exercício para fixar tudo que você aprendeu nesse vídeo. No nosso site você encontrará o exercício, o gabarito e o áudio deste vídeo para ouvir várias vezes. Espero que você tenha gostado e aprendido algo. Até o próximo vídeo. Tchau!